Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Natalia Lee and I'm the author of the young adult novels Highborn, Way of Spears, and the soon-to-be-released Song of the Dryad. Song of the Dryad does not have a release date yet, but as soon as it does, you guys will be the first to know. So I recently, here at the very beginning of August, received my manuscript, Song of the Dryad, back from my editor. I have been through the editing process. I found and hired my own freelance editor, and now I feel ready to talk to you guys about editors. So I'm going to be doing a little freelance editors series, and this is going to be the first video in that series. So today I'm going to be talking about how to hire an editor, where you find them, how you work with them, do you even need them? So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So hiring a freelance editor, I think, can be rather intimidating if you haven't done it before. I was certainly a little bit nervous going into it. Again, I had never worked with an editor, I had never hired an editor, I had no idea where to start. So that is the first topic that I will be covering today, and that is where to find freelance editors. Now, there are a few different places, but the first place that I will recommend is the Editorial Freelancers Association, and you can find that at the-efa.org, and I will of course link this down below so that you can easily click it and check it out. So I actually learned about the EFA through Meg Littleton. So Meg, thank you so much for showing me this awesome resource. You can actually go to this website and put in exactly what type of editor you are looking for. So I went through there, I said, okay, I'm writing a young adult fantasy. This is the type of editor I'm looking for. I hit that search button and it showed me all the editors that worked within my genre and my age group and were available for the type of editing that I needed. There are different types of editing, whether you need developmental editing, copy editing, proofreading. These are all different. So first you have to determine what you need. And if you want me to talk more about the different styles of editing and the different editors you can hire, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to be doing a big freelance editors Q&A in this series. So on this video and the next one, make sure to leave all of your freelance editor-esque questions so that I can compile them all in the big Q&A that I will eventually be doing. So yeah, if you want to know more about the different type of editors, let me know down below because we're not talking about that today. Okay, so let's say you are on the EFA and you find all these editors and you have no idea where to even get started. This is where I would say ask others. Within this AuthorTube community and the writer community that we have on social media right now, there are so many people that you can connect with and ask them, hey, who is your editor? Did you enjoy working with this editor? Would you recommend them to me? Can you give me their contact info? I actually did this. I kind of asked around, I talked to a few different people, and that's how I got the information about the EFA from Meg Littleton, because I reached out to her. I knew that she was an editor and that she knew others, and I wanted a little bit of information from her, and she was really able to help me out. So don't feel nervous about it. Definitely reach out to other writers, especially writers that you know have had their work professionally edited, and you can get recommendations for them, or maybe they didn't really enjoy working with their editor and they can tell you that too, which is really important. The goods and the bads, you need to know it all, so make sure to reach out to others and ask those questions. Okay, so let's say you checked the EFA, you don't know who to choose, you asked for recommendations, you still don't know who to choose. Where can you go from there? And I'm going to give you a little list of editors that you can start with. So these editors are kind of within our community, so I would recommend the RevPit Editors. And again, Meg recommended them to me. I reached out to a few of these editors. I talked to them before deciding who I wanted to work with. So RevPit is a Twitter pitch contest, and these editors work with that pitch contest. So I'm going to link the information down below. It would be a really good jumping off point for you to find a few people, maybe reach out to them, learn a little bit more about them. And if you don't click with them, again, go back to the EFA, look at some more editors. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions. I actually ended up finding my editor through the EFA. She was on there, I read all about her, I chatted with her, and that is where I found her. So it works really well and I would highly recommend it. Okay, so let's say you have gone searching for editors and you have made yourself a little list. How are you going to choose which editor you want to use? I was definitely in this boat. I had a few that I was thinking about and I didn't really know how to decide who to choose. So the first thing I would recommend is to speak to this person directly if you can. I'm somebody with social anxiety. I know that a lot of people have it, so sometimes a phone call or like a face-to-face Skype conversation can be super intimidating, and I totally understand that, but reach out to them in some way. Email is great. Phone conversation if you're able, a Skype conversation. You just need to start up a dialogue with this person. Ask a lot of questions. I had never worked with a professional editor before. I had always just done edits myself and had beta readers that would help me. So this was very new to me, and I definitely wanted to get all of my questions out there and up front to these editors. And by asking all those questions, not only was I getting answers, but I was also kind of figuring out who these editors were, what type of work, they liked to edit, and through that, I got to know their personalities a little bit better, and I think that clicking with an editor on a personality level can be really important because you want to be comfortable enough with them to give them your beloved manuscript and let them make all these changes and suggestions. And again, depending on what type of editing you're going for, you'll have different changes that are being made by these editors. But once you get to know them a little bit better, you can base your decision off of, who do you click with personality wise. I ended up making my decision both off of that and off of what one editor was offering more so than the other editor. And I do plan to talk about my experience with my freelance editor, so that will be in a later video. But definitely just ask all your questions. Don't feel embarrassed. Get all of them out there and up front so that you are going into this experience, without that blindfold. You might be new to this, but you had all your questions answered and you know what's going to happen next. So something that some editors also offer is like a trial edit. And some editors will charge for this and some of them will do it for free. And what this is pretty much they will edit a small chunk of your work. The amount of words and work that they will edit is going to vary across different editors, and they will usually, you can ask them about this directly when you talk to them, or sometimes they will have it written all out on their website or their EFA page or wherever you find them, you can find this information. Sometimes they will offer this to you because you want to make sure that your style clicks. Because maybe you think that you're really going to get along with an editor, but then they do a trial edit for you and you're like, no way, I don't like any of these suggestions. Granted, ask yourself, are they actually, not good suggestions, or are you just being guarded and defensive about your work? That's something that you'll need to clear up, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. But through that trial edit, you can definitely get a sense of that editor's style and the way that they work. So that can be really great if your editor offers it. And in my opinion, I feel that if you ask an editor for this and they flat out say no, maybe that's not a great choice, because you want somebody that's going to be willing to work with you and form that work relationship and bond, because again, you are giving them something that is so important to you. So you shouldn't feel intimidated or scared for any reason going into this process. The last tip I have for this category is to speak with the editor directly. There are some companies out there that have multiple editors, and you might end up talking to one of the editors, but then your book gets given to a totally different one that you didn't end up talking to. So before you make any final decisions, before you sign any contracts, make sure that you know exactly who's going to be working with your manuscript, and make sure that you have spoken to them either through email or directly. So again, you know their personality, you know who they are, you know their work ethic and their style, and you are comfortable moving forward with the editing process. All right, now you have found your editor finally, right? How are you going to work with your editor? Now, for me, it was a rather hands-off experience. I asked all my questions up front. I got everything answered. I had to pay a 50% deposit down to kind of save my spot. And then I gave them my manuscript and they worked on it for 1 month. And then at the end of the month, I had to pay the rest of my 50%, and then I received all the documents back. So again, it was a rather hands-off process. When I edit and critique for my clients, I don't do full manuscripts. I do chapters at a time, or I will do outlines, and my method of editing and working with clients is to be very conversational. I ask questions, I make recommendations, and I like when my clients talk back to me and we discuss things and we come up with new ideas together. But my editing experience wasn't like that at all. I gave them my manuscript, I waited a month, I received it back. So there was no back and forth, there was no conversation, there were no questions asked of me, and I was fine with that because at this level of editing, I didn't really need to be asked questions. Most of this was really nitty-gritty, like, does this word need a hyphen here, or should it be squished together into one word? You know, was that supposed to be a dash there? Was that supposed to be a comma? What's supposed to be going on? So mine was very much like what am I trying to say? Mine was very much like grammar, word choice, punctuation, spelling. I ended up getting the copy edit, so that was what I was looking for, and there weren't very many questions to be asked there. But again, other editors might have other styles, so ask your questions beforehand so you know exactly what the process is going to be like. Following up with this is patience. You need to be patient. Again, my manuscript was 104,000 words approximately, which I'm rather proud of because it was over 115,000 when I started the editing process. So I was able to chop out about 11,000 words before I sent it to my editor, and that saved me a lot of money because my editor based her prices on word count, which is what editors base their work off of. Some of them, I believe some of them will base it off of hourly time spent on it, but most of the editors that I talked to were all on a word by word basis, and that's how they determined how much money they were going to charge you. So I'm very glad that I was able to cut 11,000 words. But again, you just need to be patient. It took a month for me to hear back and receive my work back, but within that time, I was working on other things. So what I'm getting at here is that while your manuscript is with your editor, you know, it might take 2 weeks, it might take a month, it might take a month and a half. You should have discussed this beforehand, right? Don't treat this as like bored downtime. I used this period of time to start working on the cover design because I am working with a designer and I had to fill out a massive questionnaire to get that going. I also worked on some behind the scenes marketing stuff, and then also I was just doing a ton of pet sitting, which is why I've been very absent from YouTube, unfortunately. But use it for something productive. For example, this past July is when my manuscript was being edited. If I was in the right state of mind for it, I could have been participating in Camp NaNoWriMo with a completely new project. That just wasn't in the cards for me this time around, but it would be possible. While your manuscript is with the editor, you could start on a new project. So just don't view it as wasted time. View it as free time, creative time, and fill it with something productive. All right, next. You are working with an editor, so you need to be open to feedback, especially if you are working with a developmental editor, because they are going to be looking at the big picture, like plot, characters, story arc. They're looking at all the big picture stuff that might need to be tweaked and changed around. And this doesn't mean that you have to accept all of their suggestions, because by all means, you don't have to do everything that the editor says. You know, this isn't like a hard and fast rule that you must do everything they say. This is still your creative work. So make sure that you're, respecting the things that they say, but only make the changes that you feel, truly reflect the story. At the same time, though, don't be defensive about your work. You are paying a professional freelance editor for a reason. Let them do their job. If you read a comment or some feedback that hits you the wrong way, maybe sit with it for a while, see how you feel about it when you return a few days or a week later, because maybe you'll have received new ideas by that point, you know how to make the changes that they are suggesting, and suddenly it's a wonderful idea rather than being a terrible idea that you first thought it was. So just be very open to feedback, be grateful and thankful that you're able to work with this freelance editor. Be patient, let them do their job. Also, I don't know about how other freelance editors work, but I did sign a contract with mine. So I signed a contract for a certain amount of money. We signed a contract for the amount of time it would take. I have to sign like a quality agreement form to agree and let them know, yes, you did quality work and I am kind of releasing you of your legal obligations to work on this project. So there was a lot of like behind the scenes contracts and legal stuff that my editor and I agreed on. I don't know if every editor does this. I have only worked with this one, but that is what I ended up doing. So if your editor has you sign a contract, make sure that you look through it very, very carefully and know exactly what you are signing and exactly what you are going to be receiving in return. Don't allow yourself to be confused. Don't just sign it without knowing what it says. Print it out if you need to, highlight different passages, and know exactly what you are going to be getting for your money. All right, now this brings us to my very last topic, and that is, do I need a professional editor? And the stance I'm going to take on this is, it is completely up to you. I think one of the first things you need to do is determine the budget that you can realistically spend on an editor. If you don't have the money available for this, don't sweat it. Like when I wrote Highborn Away of Spears, there's no way I had the money to pay a professional editor, but I wasn't going to let that hold me back from being able to share my story with the world. So if the budget is not there for you, make sure to utilize as many critique partners and beta readers as possible. Especially, let's say you've done like 2 rounds of beta readers and you're going into a 3rd and final round of beta readers. You could ask them to focus, heavily on your grammatical errors or your spelling errors. And this isn't necessarily what beta readers do. They are more so there to assess the entertainment value of your story. But there are some beta readers, and I had many of them, that like to pick out those errors. I am one of those. Like when I see an error, whether it's a spelling error, there's an extra space between words, anything like that, I like to point it out, and I like when my readers point it out to me because it helps me to just clean it up that much more. So make sure that you definitely utilize as many of them as possible. And then going along with that is edit, edit, edit. With, I'll be honest, with Highborn, I don't feel that I edited it enough times. It was my first book, I edited it up, I was really proud of it, and I put it out there. It was the second novel that I wrote, but the first that I really saw through to completion, so I'm extremely proud of it, but I have learned so much along the way. So with Song of the Dryad, I am going to be on the 6th draft, which means I have edited this entire manuscript 4 times by myself and once with a professional editor. So that is 5 rounds of edits that this manuscript has gone through to get to the shiny state that it's at right now. So don't just edit once and say, oh, I fixed my spelling errors, it's good to go. No, edit 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, edit as many times as you need. After every round of beta readers or critique partners, edit the whole thing. Work on it, work on it, work on it. And I know that it can feel extremely tedious because you don't want to have the patience. You want to finish it, you want to get that beautiful cover on there, and you want to get it out there to the world. But once once that's published and it's live for everybody to buy and to read, that's the way that it's going to be. Unless later on you plan to take it down, rewrite it, and then put it back up, but that's not necessarily something that you want to have to do. So make sure that you are editing it as much as possible on your own. Learn. There are things that I still have to learn and that I have to research and that I have to go look up to figure out, hey, how do I, use this word in a grammatically correct way? Or how do I use this punctuation here? How do I use, the ellipses versus the em dash? Those are all things that a copy editor will work on with you, but you can learn how to do those things too. So if you have decided that a professional editor is not in your budget, then you need to really dig deep, teach yourself as much as possible, edit as much as possible, and get as many critique partners and beta readers as possible. don't let the money hold you back. I know that self-publishing can be extremely expensive. Believe me, I'm understanding that this time around, and I will talk about that in a future video. But don't let that hold you back, because we want to read your work. You know, we need so many stories, so many different stories in the world. So don't let that one thing hold you back from being able to share your story with us. All right, guys, that is it for today. Those are the 4 categories that I wanted to go through with you. Again, any links that I can put below, I will. I will put the EFA down below. I will try to find a link to those RevPit editors that I mentioned down below as well, so that kind of gives you a jumping off point if you are absolutely lost and have nowhere to start. Like I mentioned earlier, I will be doing a massive freelance editor Q&A style video. So if you have a lot of questions that weren't answered in this video, please drop them in the comments down below so that I can answer those down the road with one of the other videos in my series. All right, guys, it feels so good to be back in front of a camera again. I truly missed you. I missed just being here, getting ready, sitting in front of my little lights that I put together myself, and I'm just so grateful to have the time today to be able to join you again. So thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!